you possibly be into playing a little melody at some point? You don't, no rush and you don't have to, but. So, okay, let's think about this a little bit. So you guys have, you have done some playing for, like we're not starting from scratch. You guys have done some playing.
Yeah.
So let's start with a tune, some sort of generic starting tune that's somewhat familiar, and just chord it the way just so we have a starting point.
Okay.
What's a tune, like a basic tune in your repertoire that you?
Oh, good lord, I don't know. Ask him. You name it.
Elzic's Farewell.
Sure.
Elzic's Farewell. That sounds good. And I'm addicted to dots, so I'm gonna pull them up unless you tell me I can't.
Well, you should, yeah, by all means.
Then I can look at them with folks. All right.
So it looks like you got some more folks. Well,
Thanks, guys.
let's see. For Elzic's, do you which part do you do as the A part?
And C. Oh.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
5, 6, 7, 8. Circle back to that one. What's a solid major fiddle tune that would be familiar to you folks?
Oh God, Red Wing.
Okay.
Basic chords, yes, no.
Red Wing is cool. What's something a little more
A little
fiddly?
more interesting than that.
No, not interesting, but fiddly.
Sort of Jay's Radio or something like that.
Let's
Pick what you like.
yeah.
Yeah, you pick one.
So something in like a wedding reel vein.
Yeah. That's the other wedding reel.
Yep. What key?
That going to D.
Okay, so this is a tune. It's not one that I think I know exactly, but this will be a place to start. So maybe let's give this a listen. 2, 3, 4. let's officially start this. Hi, my name is Andrew. It's nice to meet you guys, see you guys. I didn't catch your name.
Scott.
Scott?
Yeah.
Hi, Scott. And Rachel, yeah? Good to see you again. So, so a lot of the things, I'm going to try and keep our discussion right now kind of to chord substitutions.
Okay.
A disclaimer would be that you kind of want to pair all of this talk with like other basic elements about backing up tunes, like having good rhythm and good connection and things like that. But I'm just gonna, at least for starters, let's just kind of like assume that there's a whole nother workshop about like playing well together and rhythm and,
We all know that.
you know, it's probably ultimately more important, but that's not what we'll talk about here. Okay, cool, I guess as far as like a premise.
Yes.
Okay, so this is fun then. So often I have to like juggle these things. Let's just talk about the harmonics for starters. So a tune like this, you guys all heard that, and like that to me is like a really good example of like that completely generic, like wonderful generic fiddle tune, you know, contradance tune. It's in it's in D major. Are we all pretty sure that it's in D major? So if from a backup perspective, let's like, first of all, just from listening to the melody, would you mind playing it one more time? Let's think about let's come up with any information we can. Listen to it one more time. Starts on a D is the first note. Probably the A part's good. Cool. So like, we can say it's in D and we're pretty safe there, but how do we know that it's in the key of D? Any ideas? How do you know what key a song is in?
All the strong beats seem to have the revolve around that.
Okay. So, but like, what do you like?
It ends on D, yeah.
It ends on D. Are there any other rules for how you know what is it like? What do we even mean by like it being in a key?
Are we talking
Like,
dot rules or ear rules?
I don't know, either one. Whatever, you just throw out whatever comes to mind.
Around measure 4 seems to go to A.
The chord,
Yeah.
it didn't change keys.
No,
But the 5 chord was there somewhere.
Okay,
There was a hint of a 5 chord.
I like that. But a 5 chord, I still haven't gotten to the 1 chord yet. How do we know what one is?
We know it's a 1 because we play other chords.
Don't miss the 5 told you? That's actually a pretty good answer.
Right, because we're in the key of D,
Yeah.
and
Okay, but what is the key of D?
what is
How many sharps are in the key of D?
2?
Okay, so this tune is using all notes in the D scale. There we go. Now,
Oh, I see. It's not a modal tune. It's not,
Not
a
really.
pentatonic tune.
are there
There
accidentals?
No, there are just no C's whatsoever, I don't think.
Ah, so it's
So it's
open-minded.
almost
about
pentatonic?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
Well, there are no notes that aren't in a D scale.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Sorry.
Well, I lied, there's C. And it's sharp.
So that's kind of nice, is that you have that ambiguity of not having that seventh, that sharp seventh. It
Yeah.
allows you to-
I mean, it's an A characteristic of the melody. Okay, cool. So like, I mean, I didn't want to like belabor this, but like, it's kind of cool to try and like we jump very far ahead sometimes with our assumptions about tunes, and then we're like, and then we feel stuck. You know what I mean? Like you jump way far ahead without thinking about how you get there, and then you're like, oh well, I don't know what chords to choose. Well, I like to try and start a little earlier. So key of D. What do we know about the key of D?
The people's key.
one of many. And what are the most common chords that we're used to encountering in this kind of music? 1, 4, and 5. So in the key of D, 1 chord. What's the 4 chord?
G.
G. The 5 chord? All right. So that's great. Now, this isn't so much right or wrong, but what's your experience of how those chords get used? Like someone said, I heard someone mention the 5 chord
Yeah.
bringing you back to the 1 chord. Is that something you guys are familiar with, that movement
Sure.
of a 5 chord pulling you to the 1 chord?
Yes.
Where you guys think you could it sounds like you can identify the sound of a 5 chord?
Yes.
Like, you guys hear that sound? Okay, cool. And so how would you characterize a 4 chord? Does the 4 chord have a particular sound to you guys?
Yes.
Amen.
That goes on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As opposed to this, which is definitely not amen. But this is amen, and this is not amen. Yeah, okay, great. Cool.
Great, you're giving him another teaching tool.
Unless you're going.
So,
That's the man.
Yeah, right.
okay, so I think those are, I wanted to make sure I had that vocabulary down for starters. So when you're picking out, this is a perfectly lovely generic tune, and we've got our 1, our 4, and our 5 chords. So before we talk about substitutions, like the funny thing about substitutions or about calling them that, is that it assumes that there's like some other chord there first, which is a weird thing to assume. That there was like a chord that was sitting there unplayed that we are now not going to play and play something else in place of it. So first of all, how a fiddle tune like this has a lot of notes in it. We're not going to play as many chords as there are notes in the fiddle tune, right? Like you almost never do. That's why I steered us away from Red Wing, because I wanted to dwell on a notey fiddle tune before like more of a song where every note had a little bit more weight to it. In a fiddle tune like this, we have to make some sort of judgment call about what are the notes that we're going to harmonize with, and what are the notes we're going to consider dissonant. Does that make sense? So let's think about that for a little bit. So this tune, could you play a little phrase at the A part? So here's a root. So if we're thinking about, let's think of the tops of the phrases for a minute. We start with a bum, bum, bum. So those are both D. Okay, so we've got choices there. How do I want to go about this? Yeah, let's just do that first.
Okay.
So if our important note here is D, and we're kind of sure we're in the key of D, a D chord is a good choice, yeah, that would certainly sound fine. But what else could we do? Any other ideas? Sure. So what would that be in this case?
B minor.
B minor. So if we played a B minor, and the melody note is a D, it was the root, if we had played a D chord. Now what scale degree is it? Third? That's kind of neat. You mind playing that? 2, 3, 4. Cool. Let's just run through some other things. Pardon?
Could be a 4 chord.
Yeah. So if we do the 4 chord, you guys following what we're doing here, right? D as 1, there's a D chord. D as a third, it's a B minor. So if we did a 4 chord, now what function is D? The fifth. And we've gone through the D is in a triad, right? So here, let's hear that with the 4 chord. 2, 3, 4. Kind of neat, right? Okay, So I'm catching. So far I'm still catching up to you all. We're further ahead than I expected. Why stop at a triad? Where else could we go?
It could be a seventh.
What would that make it?
What would that make it? What would that be the seventh? E7. E minor seven in
Yeah.
this case?
Give that a try. 2, 3, 4. Cool. Yeah. What's another? There's another chord out there that it could be a seventh of.
Seventh, well, E major.
Yes. So okay. Here. So let's.
Oh, E flat.
Okay, wow, we're running very far. First of all, let's back up a minute. Let's keep it within the scale degree for starters. Let's exhaust them. Let's exhaust them in the scale first.
E minor 7.
E minor 7. That's what we tried there. So before I kind of misled us there with a 7th. There is, but not in the scale.
Okay.
So let's. So there it is as a 7th, and we've had it as the 3rd, we've had it as the 1st, we've had it as the 5th, 7, what else? What other notes are there?
Thinking of ways to play it as a ninth, but that one involved playing C.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's
Yeah.
okay. Right?
So pause that one. We'll get to it in just a second. There's an easier one that we haven't talked about yet.
There is.
So the 2 or the 5.
No, we're still missing one.
Are we been to 6?
4.
4.
4.
D is a 4th,
Yeah.
Okay.
which would be what chord?
D sus 4.
Well, no.
No.
D is the sus 4.
Oh, D is a sus 4. Okay.
Right?
That's the sus
We're taking the root
Okay, the
and
D
putting
is, so
it.
you'd be
Well, that would be like
fourth,
an A minor.
It would be in A sus 4,
Okay. Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So let's try this.
Okay.
This is a fun little experiment. This was a roundabout way of getting to it, but let's do them in order.
Okay.
So D is a root, D.
Okay.
D as a, let's call it a 9.
Okay.
What?
What is that going to be?
Is that the sus 4?
D as a 9.
C sharp minor?
C sharp. Oh, yes.
Let's skip that one.
Okay.
Can't be C sharp minor, it's C sharp half diminished.
Yeah.
Let's skip that one. D as a 3 would be B minor. D as a 4.
Okay.
Right, you can see we're just going in order, right? D as a 4 is going to be A. D as a 5 is going to be G. D as a 6, we didn't talk about that. Yeah.
But that turns into a D chord.
A D chord,
D7.
yeah. So try this with me. I'll call it out as we go.
Okay.
1, 2, 1, D major. E minor 7. F sharp. That's just basically a D chord. G. A. B minor. The easiest way to get around this next one is A over C sharp. We're back to D. Let's try it one more time just to get our heads around it. So let's start at D again. E minor. Okay, now this is be like F sharp minor with the D, which is really just kind of becomes D and G. A. I'm going to put that D in the top and get a nice sus 4. B minor. And for 7, let's do A over C sharp. Nice. Cool. And close, and that's the idea. So, that was a little bit of a haphazard way of getting there, but I mean, guys kind of following what we were doing there?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah, it took me the second time through.
Yeah,
Then I was
it's
like,
stuff like
oh.
I've done, but I've never thought about, I mean, we just think about going up the scale. Then you
Right,
sort of,
right,
you're
right.
going
Exactly.
about
And the idea,
relationship.
so the idea is that you are gonna, like, you know, we just picked, somewhat arbitrarily, but we picked this like loud, prominent root note at the top of the phrase, and we kind of reharmonized it, you know,
But we included it
every
all the
time it's gonna be
Yeah.
a different color,
Ah.
depending on what we put with it. So real quickly, what that is, D. So first of all, major scale in triads. D is always going to be the same: 1 major, 2 minor, 3 minor, 4 major, 5 major, 6 minor. 7 is funny. It's got to be a 7 half diminished. It can't be a full diminished. And what that usually translates to in these circles is like a 5 chord. It's the easiest way to sort out those harmonies. It's like that chord. That makes kind of makes sense there. And then we're back to okay, great.
Just so I can catch up, when you're saying
Sure.
when you're saying that when you're going to 2 minor, 3 minor,
Mhm.
are you talking the 2 chord, or are you talking using the D, the chord that has the D as a 2?
Great clarification. So I'm talking about just right now, just triads. The 2 chord. It's a 2 minor chord,
1,
3 minor chord, 4 major chord, 5 major chord, 6 minor chord, 7 half diminished. Right? So that's with triads. As long as you guys are all like jazzed about this, let's do that with sevenths. Right? So you get the exercise here is like we're staying in the key, right?
Okay.
So if you had to make all of those chords 7th chords,
Okay.
1, there you go, right? So it's going to be a 1 major, major 7th. That's adding, yeah. This is so much fun. Thank you guys for doing this.
Oh, thank you.
2 minor, what's the 7th going to be?
D.
Is it a minor 7th or a major 7th?
Minor.
Right? The D natural. A 2 minor major 7th would be this chord.
Is in the key that you're in. Yes.
Exactly.
It's flat, so we're still in the keys, right? Okay.
Yeah? You guys following?
Yeah.
Okay. 3 minor, what's the 7th? Major or minor?
Major.
Minor.
Minor? Oh, that's a minor third.
E natural, yeah.
Yes.
That makes sense?
Brain is
Okay, 4 major, what's the 7th?
It's a major 7.
Major 7th, that'd be the F natural rather than the F sharp rather than F natural.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, 5 major, what's the 7th? Pardon? Dominant. It's a minor 7th. So, like, if
Oh,
we're
the
going to
seventh
use
itself
the
is
7th itself
Yeah.
as minor, right?
Yeah.
We use other words so it's not confusing, but it'd be a 5 major minor 7th. 6 minor minor 7th, minor. And then again, that's like I lose. It stops being useful on 7 for
Yeah.
me. Like I
Yeah.
usually just revert to a 5. So, how this comes in handy is that when you have a generic fiddle tune like that, these are the notes that are all the other notes in the tune, right? So if you want to play, you've got this tune in D major, and we pick a D. Okay, that's great. If you want to play a 2 chord, that's cool. But if you want to like tie it to the melody, you can put in more of like we're talking about tunes that are what's the word I'm looking for? Not pentatonic, not chromatic. Diatonic. Where if you can include other diatonic notes from the scale in your chord, it's like the way I think about it is that like you're throwing another rope onto the melody, right? It's like here's your cool chord substitution, but if you can put a 7th in, you've got like another hook into the melody, and if you can put more and more of them come in. So let me do an example of what I mean by that, if you don't mind. Thank you. I'm just gonna arbitrary chord substitutions here. Right now, same thing, but I'll put sevenths in now. That makes sense? So I'll leave the D in. Right? So in that case, let's. This is arbitrary, but let's try this one. D, 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 2, 3, and then we're gonna do E minor 7. So keep that D note in the chord,
Okay.
and then we're gonna go to a G. Now the D note's already in the chord, but let's put the F sharp in the chord to pull it, you know, to give it another bit of harmonic tie to the melody. Yeah, adding the F sharp. Right? It's just anything we can do to reference back to this like heavy D-ness of the melody. And then for the 5 chord, let's also put a D in it. So 5 sus 4. That make sense? Let's go a little bit slower. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just nifty that you can leave your 3 finger down the whole time. And that's something in this like faux Celtic world of chord substitution, that's something you want to look for. You want to look for tones that you can leave down over more than one chord. That's what gives it that sound, you know? Let me do a quick like example of this that goes a little bit further. Stream of consciousness substitution, but the rules I was using were all diatonic, right? So if your tune has, if your tune sounds like that, if your tune is like, doesn't have any accidentals and is relatively ambiguous with, you know, without like a lot of arpeggios, so like Like if the tune is really heavily arpeggiated, it's a little different. But if it's one of these rolling, not super arpeggiated diatonic tunes, you at least have the option of kind of playing whatever chord you want. And the more common tones you can include, the more you get away with it, if that makes sense. You know, if your 2 minors are 2 minor 7s, if your 6 minors are 6 minor 7s, if your 4s are 4 major 7ths or 4 9s, you're basically including including a note from the D chord, from the root chord, wherever possible. And it just frees you up to do more and more things, where you can kind of write your own melody, right? So I'm listening to the fiddle tune melody, but I'm really thinking to myself, I just sing whatever I feel like singing. Effective about that, if you're thinking, if you're like thinking of melody, if like some sort of internal melody for yourself that way, what ends up happening is it sounds like everybody's favorite pop song. That it's not a cover. It's just like any song that you like that sounds like that, you know. And it's like you're hearing two things at once. You're hearing a fiddle tune, but you're not hearing the accompaniment of the fiddle tune. You're hearing like another melody in there as well. Does that kind of make sense? Okay, let's crack open one more level of this. What are some things we could do if we leave diatonia? What is D outside of, what is the D note if we leave the diatonic scale?
Anything.
Yeah, exactly right. Now you're talking my language. It's right. I mean, like it has a relationship to all other notes, right?
Right.
So how would we use that? Like, what's the metric we would know that we were like use it like how do we know if it goes wrong?
It sounds
Don't sound good.
But what's the like? How
maybe
do
it's
we
a half
know
step
that?
apart from the melody.
Is that
Not
your
necessarily,
exactly?
Yeah.
Right? So like it becomes this thing where the further we leave the tonal center of a tune, the more we have to pay attention to what the melody is actually doing, if that makes sense. So like a tune with like a tune with almost no notes in it, like take this example all the way. A drone, you can play any note, and it's just the only thing you have to reference is the drone, right? Now, if your melody has 2 notes in it, maybe you think, okay, well, here's the most important note, and here's the second most important note, and whatever note you're gonna play has to relate to both of those. Fiddle tunes have many more than 2 notes in them, so the further we leave, like the 1, 4, 5 of the root key, the more we have to know what the melody's doing, because the more potentially weird intervals we're gonna encounter. Okay, let's try one. A fun one is the dominant 7. So D has a 9 over a C chord.
Over? You want it on top?
No, yeah, D on top. Right.
Okay.
So let's do let's listen to how I might use that in this tune, and then we'll play it together. 2, 3, 4.
after the B minor?
To F.
Yeah, okay. I
And
was
so-
there and I thought, no, he's not there.
So
You were
D
there,
then,
but you were-
in
you
these
were-
4 chords, D is root, D is a ninth, D is a third, D is a sus4. Make sense?
That's right.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Try it one more time. Nice. All right. So that's pretty cool. Like we've now like veered into sort of like power ballad territory. But let's just to like explore our ears a little bit more. What is D as a major third?
B flat major?
Right. So how could we use that in this chord progression?
Where would we use it? After the B minor?
Yeah. Let's just see what happens. 5, 6, 7, 8. C natural. B minor. B flat. Right. So let's think about this. If we're going to play a B flat chord in a tune with a D major, what are the notes we have to be most concerned about?
B naturals, maybe. You mean in the melody?
Yeah. B naturals aren't going to come up that often in a D major. That's not going to come up that often either. Not that important. Nope, there are two that are much more important.
F sharp.
F sharp,
Oh,
right?
right.
Because F sharp is going to come up all the frickin' time. And what is an F sharp to a B flat chord? F sharp to a B flat. It's ugly.
B flat, yeah.
It's ugly, right? It's a flat 5. Or rather, it's a sharp 5. Right. But F natural is the 5th. Right? Okay, that's one. What's the other one that's going to come up a ton? You should think of a D scale. The 2. The 2 is going to come up quite a lot. That's in all of the runs of a tune like this. And that's a particular sound. So this is what I mean. The further you leave, it's not that you can't play that chord because it's quite cool, but the further you leave the tonal center of your tune, the more you have to know where in the tune the F sharps come, right? Like you have to know more and more things about the tune to make weirder and weirder chord substitutions make sense. One way to make a B flat chord, like a flat 6 chord, more palatable would be to include the A, right? Like how we could make a B flat chord a B flat major 7th, and now we've put an A into it. That's like a whole nother lifeline back to our key, if you want to think about it that way. Another way this works is that the further you get away from the tonal center, the more your melody player might adjust or simplify the melody. You know what I mean? Like if you're in a band arrangement situation, there would be, potentially things that that you could coordinate on. Like, let's avoid a couple of those notes this time through while we do this thing. That's more in the arrangement direction than just like straight substitutions. But all right, I've been talking a lot. Any questions about this kind of thing so far?
No, I got my brain
I'm kind of, yeah, my goal is to make all of your brains go, woo!
They're going there.
Oh, it's already gone. My brain left the building.
Let's do a couple. First of all, is it just an hour? Are we done at 3? Okay. So let's do a couple. Let me show you a couple things I often do. Yeah, I don't. Let's just. Is this working so far?
Yeah, great.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So, one of the things I think makes this most effective is if you do kind of pursue a sub melody, it's not like a counter melody exactly, but like you are on your own harmonic path, and it becomes the interesting thing that happens is that the melody keeps relating to your path in fresh ways because you are in a new place harmonically when that melody note shows up. So one real normal thing to do is to start like on the top of the tune, the top of the phrase, whatever, start on something that isn't the 1, right? So let's, we've got 1, 4, and 5 are maybe the most common chords we're used to playing. Let's try starting on the 4 chord. Let's just see what that sounds like.
First time.
Yeah, first, let's do it. What do I want to do? Let's start by droning D, just so we kind of like get our ears around the
What
key.
would you do for potatoes for that? Would you do it in
Yeah. So let's all just kind of drone D. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess just D. It's just kind of, and if we can, just D. Like take out all of those other notes. That's still a D chord. Just one D. Yeah. There we go. Let's listen to this a little bit more. Remember, all of the notes of the triad are not necessarily your friend, because they're implying more harmonics than you want. Alright, so now we're going to switch to the 4 chord. Let's go back to the 1 chord. 2, 3, 4. Let's go to that 4 chord again. Let's go to the 1 and the 5, 4. Oh, like now we're in. You got a 4 chord. There you go. 1, 5. All right, now just pause for a second. Listen to what I'm playing at this point. Just listen to this song. This is a different song than the fiddle tune. This song is, what is this song about? Like you've all heard this song before, right? It should be immediately recognizable. Alright, now see if you can jump in here. 1, 5, 4. Okay, cool. So, just when give you something to take home, I just picked something other than 1. That's all. That's the kernel of that. It's like, well, let's pick something else. let's try a 4 chord. I could have tried something else, you know, another chord, but we picked 4. And then I just tried to write a song that started on a 4 chord. Yeah. And then to make my song work better, instead of doing, I'm doing, you know, that's a 4/9 or a 4 major 7. You know, I'm trying to tie in my chords with as many notes in D as I can find to you know, because then there's less of the moments where the F sharp and the G are going to happen in an ugly way, right? And there are more of the moments where F sharp is going to happen in a harmonic way. I don't know if that makes sense. Okay, I picked a simple, that's quite a lot of chord substitution, and we're still only using 1, 4, and 5. If I do that, this would be like a mechanical trick to try.
Okay.
Something like that, and you're enjoying it, try playing it twice as fast. So that was, in this case, here is what we were doing before. Sound like the same thing? Right? And just playing everything for half as long. And then back to what it was before. Like now my song has a chorus. It didn't have a chorus a minute ago. And I might even do a little tag. Does that make sense? Like how it's not like a do this here. It's like, what path do you want to go? Like what path do you want to go on? This whole sound was sort of defined by starting the song on a 4 chord, which meant with the melody, it's like a 4 major 7, right? We might have been on a totally different path if we'd started on the 5. You know, if you start on the 5, it might be it could be a lot of things, but it could be like, what's this tune like? You know, and I don't really like that one as much, but it's just like what song, you know, this is a different song, and you'd make different choices if you were going down that path. Is that kind of making sense a little bit? In that it's not so much about matching the tune as it is about how do you come up with your own story and then pull the tune into it.
You're the subplot of the main.
Yeah, this subplot.
How do you keep tying it back to the main story that's going along?
I mean, honestly, I'm more think of it as the other way around. I'm more think of it as like, this is what, because at least in the context of dance music, like, you're gonna move very differently to, like, this is a very different thing. changed quite a lot. Yeah.
Can I ask you a sort of a technical question?
Yes, I
So-
prefer personal questions, but sure.
Well, it's a person.
No, go ahead.
Do you usually start sort of normally and then go off, or do you sometimes just start this way and keep it that way through the whole?
It depends on what context. Like, if this is like in the with people I normally play with, and like what we're doing is a known thing. Like if there are people that I play with and this is a song I've played before, no, I would start. I would not default to starting normally. But if there are people, you know, if it's like a jam situation, or if there's someone I'm not worked with a lot, or like depending on who, you know, if we're gonna make it specifically about playing for dances, that can depend a lot about like who's out there dancing, what do they need, what are they looking for. So like at an event like this, where basically everyone out there knows what they're doing and I'm on stage with people I've worked with before, I don't have any need to start quote unquote normally.
Okay.
But if it's a pickup band and there's a, you know, at a wedding reception, I would approach these things a lot more gradually.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because you know, if you're playing with another rhythm player, like if I'm playing with a guitar player,
Mm-hmm.
and we haven't had these discussions before,
Right.
that blows people's minds right out of the water.
Yeah.
Where they-
There are things that guitar players can do to help make that easier. There are probably things that piano players can do to make that easier too, but I don't know what they are. And piano usually wins. I mean, if piano and guitar want to get into a fight, piano usually
Like
wins.
the bass line's going to win.
Yeah.
So whatever that is. Yeah.
Yeah. And let's see, what else? Any? We only got a couple minutes left, but any other thoughts on these?
This
So-
is incredibly helpful.
So just to recap a couple of things. Get your scale in, you know, get your diatonic major scale in triads. Get real comfortable with it, you know? Just always, never wonder whether or not you need a F sharp major in a, you know, you're never gonna need it. I mean, you might, but like, just get really, really comfortable with that scale.
Yeah.
And then get really comfortable with that scale with seventh chords. So you just kind of know that that's a chord that you want, and that's a chord that you want, and that's a chord that you want. Just get that so that that's like vocabulary for you, that you can just recognize those sounds as well as you can recognize the sound of a amen.
So and they're all major, they're all sevens that are in the diatonic.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Just so that, like, just as like a building block, like learn that sound so that you know what it is, right? And then, you know, so to work on this, you are looking for tunes that have no accidentals. That's important. And tunes that don't have a ton of arpeggios, because if there are a lot of arpeggios, it means they probably want you to play that chord or something. It's at least like a
Well-
one that you need to defer to.
You know, what we didn't talk about, but that's kind of comes to my mind are a lot of these old time tunes where you're kind of going back and forth here.
We really stuck in this workshop. We really stuck to like tunes with 1, 4, and 5 chords,
Right.
like major tunes with 1, 4, and 5.
But it seems to me that those tunes lend themselves really well to this theory
Yes.
too, because they're very ambiguous. They're kind of all one, unless you throw something else in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a sort of suggestion, which is just not to be squeamish. Like if you make a decision and you're like, I'm going to start on the 4, and you're the chord player at the moment and you have the power to do that, don't like play a little bit of 4 and then be like, oh, I think something didn't match, and got off it. Just actually like say, I'm going to play the 4 and I'm going to stay there for 8 beats, no matter what. And just like believe in your inner pop song.
Yeah.
and go ahead and let it be a little bit dissonant, but have what you're doing.
Because the mistake you need to avoid is not dissonance. It's like unbelievability.
Right.
Right?
That's it. That's right. What?
Like
That's not
the
possible.
thing that will sound bad is if you're like, ooh, I'm not really sure if this is a good idea. Right? It's not harmonic dissonance. It's like squeamishness. That's the
Tentative.
I'd say one of the main markers of a really professional, really solid chord player for dances is that when they hit one of those chords and they realize it's not using, they get this like really fun look on their head and they do it even louder.
You know
Oh, this
what
does
I'm doing
It's like,
after
oh
you're
yes,
done?
I'm doing
I know it, and it's gonna go boom, 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 go to something else.
yeah.
So, when you're doing that, when you are playing alternative stuff like that,
Mhm.
you said kind of sing it yourself. Do you actually sing it to yourself? Or
Sure, yeah. I mean, all the time.
do you find a lot of guitar players?
I don't know what other people do, but that's totally. I mean, just in life, like just walking through the world, writing my own music video the whole time, like.
There you go.
We're gonna have to write down.
I think this is about it, but like a final thing to just think about. The sound of one is just really wonderful, and it's really, really great, and you only really get to hear it if you are somewhere else. You don't really get to hear one if you start and end there. You only get to hear one if you're coming to it from some other chord. So like when you're putting together these progressions and you're putting together your favorite pop song, your inner McCartney and Elton John contra dance music, it's like the reason why this 4 chord sounds so cool is because you get to hear the one, right? It's that you thought you were going to hear the one and you didn't, and then you get to hear it later. And as many different ways you can manipulate that emotion, you're gold. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, folks.